Bill Barnwell writes for ESPN, and he does a little thing every year, which is pretty cool. It's like a mock draft, but instead of picking every team has to make a trade. So it's not necessarily that he's predicting this will happen. He's sort of saying that it could or should. And so I'll put it on the screen and we can sort of peruse it together because it's quite intriguing. It has Bill Barnwell suggests the Niners trade up to the 5th pick in the draft with the Chargers. So the Niners would get the 5th pick and a 6th round pick, and they would trade Brandon Aiyuk, their 1st round pick, 31 and a 3rd. And they would go up to get Malik Neighbors, one of the top wide receivers in the draft. And I mean, from a draft value perspective, he has this, like, if you add this up, that's about pick 17. I mean, the difference between those, pick 17, which would be a top 20 pick. And the idea is for the Chargers, they drafted a wide receiver in round 1 last year, and he flamed out and he wasn't that good. So you want to get a sure thing to go along with Justin Herbert, and they have nothing at wide receiver. And for the Niners, they could get Malik Neighbors. They just have to maneuver around a little bit. What do you think of that potential?
Yeah, Quentin Johnson is the wide receiver they drafted last year who was not good as a rookie. And I don't know how much the Chargers make sense just because you look at their track record of what they've done this offseason. They let go of Mike Williams, cap casualty. They traded away Keenan Allen, cap casualty. They had to restructure the contract for Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack just to bring them back. So you're telling me that they got rid of 2 wide receivers because they were too expensive to now trade premium draft capital to land Brandon Aiyuk, who's going to be due a contract that pays him average annual value of $25 to $27 million. Let's call it in that ballpark. Doesn't make a lot of sense for me. Now, if the Niners did go this route, this is the type of move, this is the type of maneuvering that they're looking at here. And that draft capital, I think, would be pretty difficult to turn down because you get a sure thing, really talented prospect in Malik Neighbors, who is going to come over the next 5 years if you exercise that 5th-year option at a minimal price tag, a fraction of the price of Brandon Aiyuk. And that's maybe what the Niners thinking could be, but it would certainly be filed under the blockbuster variety for sure.
Now, again, they say here that the Chargers have more than $100 million in cap room in 2024. Is that true? After cutting Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, I know those two had gigantic, enormous cap numbers for this year. If they were to extend Brandon Aiyuk, he wouldn't have a big cap number this year. He would in a couple of years.
Yeah. And you can always put dummy years on that contract. You can backload it a little bit. And I know that going into the new league year, they were like $20 million over the cap number. And that's why they had to trim all of that salary. The restructures for Bosa and Khalil Mack could have opened up a lot of money on top of them getting rid of those wide receivers. So if you pair that up with some salary cap gymnastics, maneuvering the cap a little bit, and then you backload that deal, that could be the team for Aiyuk. I'm just not sure that's the team that kind of makes sense as far as the timeline goes.
Maybe not. I just feel like it's a great fit in the sense that him and Justin Herbert would be a great pairing.
No doubt.
Because Herbert has the arm strength to really take advantage of Aiyuk's full skill set in a way that I don't think we've seen yet. No offense to Brock Purdy, who's a hell of a quarterback, but Aiyuk's a deep threat too. Yep. How many deep shots did they really take to Aiyuk last year? Like 3?
I mean, so Purdy's deep ball completion rate was number 1 in the NFL, despite his receiver target separation being 14th. And if you think about it, what other wide receivers on the Niners were catching long balls? It was Aiyuk, and that was pretty much it because Debo has trouble tracking it. Kittle works down the seam and down the numbers. Yeah. Jawan Jennings is more of a possession wide receiver. So a lot of those deep shots were to Brandon Aiyuk.
So I feel like he's a great fit with Herbert, but I also feel like he's a great fit with Harbaugh because Harbaugh wants to run the ball and he would value a wide receiver who is passionate about blocking like Aiyuk is. So I feel like rather than hope and pray that Malik Neighbors is an all-pro, just trade for an all-pro. And the Niners would do this because ideally they'd keep Aiyuk if there was no salary cap, but it's like plan B, and plan B involves Malik Neighbors. It's not too bad.
Harbaugh would absolutely love Aiyuk because Harbaugh is all about that type of physicality, being a dog, playing until the whistle. I also think back, though, to what Harbaugh said from the NFL owners meetings, and you were there. I'm not sure if you were there around Harbaugh. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he said offensive line, that's what you got to build up, because the entire rest of the team all depends on the offensive line more so than any other offensive unit. And if they go offensive line, I think Joe Alt is the option there, because I think for the next decade, he's going to be a perennial All-Pro.
I'm going to make a hot take right now that people didn't see coming. I have an opinion on Joe Alt.
You don't like him?
I don't like him.
Interesting. All right.
Michael Lynch.
Oh, Notre Dame.
High cut.
Yeah.
I don't like him. I just want to say that about Joe Alt. Joe Alt, I've been watching you, and I don't think you're going to work out. We'll have to see.
If we talk about similar build, they do have that similar build where when you see them, you're like, doesn't have a lot of bad weight. There's not a lot of bad weight there, but they can get pushed around sometimes too.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm betting against Joe Alt.